Evidence suggests that in order to avoid the worst excesses of climate change, most of us, in places like the UK, USA, and Europe, will need to significantly change the way we consume. Not just the very rich, all of us, including the very rich. This means flying less, eating less meat, using cars less, buying and using less goods, and ensuring the homes we live in are more insulated and energy efficient. But are individual citizens being told to change their behaviour by governments and businesses? If not, might governments, businesses and citizens be caught in a climate knot, which results in us not being fully aware of the action needed from us all? Consider this short thought experiment from the position of governments, businesses and citizens. If a government told their voters they needed to restrict their consumption, a lot of people would be unhappy. The government might lose the support of some voters. Other parties might say, we agree that climate change is serious, but you don't need to make that level of change. These parties might pick up votes from those unhappy with the current government. If other parties said, actually, we don't believe that climate change is as serious as others say, you consume whatever you want, they too might pick up additional votes. Many businesses, especially those selling consumer goods, want to maximize shareholder and executive profit. This creates strong incentives to increase sales by encouraging citizens to buy and consume more, as higher profit typically comes from selling more. Traditional business models have often been poor at taking pollution and long-term consequences into account. Side effects like pollution are known as negative externalities. They are sometimes only factored into the workings of a business if governments bring in rules and regulations like fines and taxes. If profit is the number one priority, a business may not stop polluting unless the fines, taxes, or reputational damage is greater than the profit that would otherwise be generated. Businesses will try and persuade governments not to bring in fines and taxes. They will lobby governments for lighter regulation in order that they can maximize profit. This already happens. So imagine what businesses would do if governments asked them not just to pollute less, but to sell less products to citizens. In today's society, since we were young, citizens are surrounded by messaging that consuming is to be encouraged. Even that doing so may be a sign of success or part of the answer to finding happiness. Advertising is everywhere. Tempting products are everywhere. Influence and influencers are increasingly everywhere. Buy, consume, consume, consume. So in this thought experiment, citizens are consuming as usual. They aren't hearing anything different from businesses or governments. Businesses are maximizing profits as normal. Governments aren't suggesting they do anything different, and citizens aren't putting much pressure on them to do different. And governments are focused on staying in power and keeping businesses and voters happy in the short term. If governments push for less consumption, they will lose votes. If businesses push for less consumption, they will lose profit. And most citizens are unlikely to be happy if less consumption is suggested. A brave, truth-telling government is voted out. A brave, truth-telling new party is not voted in. A brave, truth-telling business loses profit. And while brave, truth-telling citizens do exist, they look like outliers against a backdrop of high consumption normality and are easily dismissed. There is an additional loop to this climate knot, the international level. Why would one country try and limit the consumption of its citizens if other countries are not doing the same? Under the current global system, limiting a country's consumption would result in its citizens and businesses having less money, less income from tax, and less new businesses investing in it. Indeed, many countries around the world still look at those countries who currently consume more and have consumed more for centuries and ask, why can't our citizens have that level of consumption? None of this is to say that citizens, businesses, and governments are making no change. Some change is happening, but at a rate that is keeping governments in power, businesses in profit, and citizens consuming. And this slowness of change means that climate change will be worse for many. Let's quickly summarise. Climate change demands that we consume less, but the climate knot means we are not talking about or acting differently. Part of this is due to the relationships between governments, businesses, and citizens. Citizens have been encouraged to consume all their lives. They may even have learned that certain consumption is a sign of success or happiness. Many businesses make their profits as a result of citizens consuming more. They already lobby against rules that limit profits and would resist any efforts to limit citizen consumption. And if a government told their citizens or businesses that they needed to consume less, they risk not being in power for much longer. Internationally, unless other governments were encouraging heavy reductions in consumption, any outlier country would find themselves out of step and out of power. So rather than honest messaging, there is silence. Rather than change, the status quo is maintained. This is the climate knot.